Hello, everyone. Thank you and welcome to episode 52 of Celebrity Customer Experience Riffs with me, Jill Raff, where we riff on anything and everything from EX to CX, employee experience to customer experience, because I am truly obsessed with employee experience, creating great, outstanding customer experience. I believe strongly that your business will increase your revenue by engaging and committing loyal and employees and customers and guests. It begins from the inside out. That's why my inside out framework is the name of my process to help make this happen. And why celebrity customer experience? I think we all know how a celebrity is treated, the treatment, the pampering, the attention that they get. And I believe strongly that every single person who comes and decides to give us their business, they have a choice. They deserve to be treated in the same way. So before we go live here with our guest today, I'm really excited. It's a very important topic about hiring, and in the hospitality industry or any of these tactics or tools and ideas will apply to any business. So for anyone who's listening who may not be in the hospitality world, but please take notes. Come to Clubhouse. We're going to close this out at 12:30. You can ask any questions, so take notes along the way. And if you're watching us live on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, please feel free to write your comments and we will see them and I'll be able to highlight them so you can be involved in the conversation in the moment. And otherwise, join us there on Clubhouse. So today I want to welcome Jeremy Nichols. Thank you for being with us, Jeremy.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So Jeremy is Florida's top hospitality headhunter. Yes, I said headhunter. Not many recruiters in the hospitality field actually live, work, and solely focus in one state. Most of them, have work and job searches scattered throughout the country. And so they're not as able to focus on their network. Jeremy lives in Florida and understands the ebbs and flows of the Sunshine State and has built his network with Florida's top talent, working with some of Florida's most impressive hotels, clubs, restaurants, and resorts. Jeremy's been recruiting for over 20 years and spends most of his years in the corporate internal environment, recruiting for retail, restaurants, and hospitality. Now he's on his own, running his firm with a team of hospitality recruiters who are in the field and understand the industry, matching talent with great companies, impacting lives, and sharing best practices is something that Jeremy is truly blessed to be able to do for a living. And we are going to get to dive deep with Jeremy. So, Jeremy, you're a Florida hospitality headhunter, and I think it's really wise and so smart that you're really able to focus. I mean, even on a whole state, that you're just really focused. You're going to get to really know the people. You're going to get to know the companies that are looking for the right people so that you can match them together. But before you kind of migrated south, you started your life way north, right, in New York. So tell us a little bit about the broader Jeremy, so we can understand where you grew up, where it's, related, what you did kind of professionally, a little bit about your background that led you to do this, so that we understand really everything that went into making the Jeremy that we know of today.
Well, okay, I'll try to encapsulate that as quick as possible. Yeah, so I'm from New York originally. Before I moved to Tampa, I was in Brooklyn, so I worked in New York City for 10 years. And then before that, I grew up in upstate New York. So for those who are not familiar with New York, it's not the city. All of New York is not New York City. I lived in Syracuse. And I also lived in a town before that called Watertown, which is pretty much hovering Canada. I could even get Canadian stations on my tube TV back in the day. So that's how close we were. My career in hospitality, I guess, started in retail. I don't know if you really consider that hospitality, but it's close. That's where I started my recruiting. It was for H&M, the clothing company. When they first came to the United States, nobody knew who they were over here. So they flew me over to Germany. I trained over there to be like a sales associate. I came back to New York City. I, was a manager for a while. I did window displays. And I think the recruiting started when I was a manager in Soho on Broadway. I saw one of the managers doing interviews. And at the time, I thought it looked cool, thought it looked fun, and I wanted to give it a shot. So I asked, and I started just hiring for associates and hiring for that store. I was a store line recruiter is what they called it. So one day out of my 5-day work week, I was recruiting. And then I got pretty good at it. I mean, it's good enough that they wanted me to travel and open new locations once they started spanning out, because you remember H&M wasn't here until like late 90s, and then now they're everywhere. So I was part of the expansion team. So I would travel and open up stores and hire the staff. And from there, I was just over New York. I wanted to just leave the city. It was just time for me to go. My wife has family in Tampa, so we relocated, and I became the director of recruiting for Panera Bread. There's a franchise it's the largest franchise in the company. So I had the entire Central Florida and North Florida market for Panera Bread. So I recruited for them for a while, and that was about 9 years. So most of my career was in corporate. Then I decided to go on my own, and I started being a franchisee and a recruiter for Gecko Hospitality. So I own and operate the state of Florida for hospitality, for hotels, resorts, country clubs, private estate. And then I also have the restaurant division, which is South Florida. So I have South Florida for restaurants in a nutshell, my condensed version.
That's amazing. Really interesting. So I'm curious, what was it? So you went from retail fashion, which we overlap. My first life, as I like to call it, I was a fashion designer for many, many years. So we overlap in the fashion world. And yes, regardless, I think, of what you're doing in that world, in that industry, you have to always be thinking of your end customer. Who is it that's buying your product? How do you, for me, I was a designer. So I had to think of, I was a knitwear designer in particular. So I had to think of the yarns, and based on, breathability and how it would feel, the comfort level based on what area of the country or even the world that would be wearing my garments, and the pricing and all these details. And whether on the retail side, on the floor, thinking about how do you market, how do you merchandise, how do you put things together? You're always thinking the customer's experience at the end of the day. So yes, I mean, I think that completely ties in, because whether it's specifically recruiting, you're still always thinking of the consciousness of that experience. And that's, to me, really cool, and kind of what I see as the thread from the things that we've talked about before that was always there for you. That was something important, was that customer.
Yeah. I also learned, just to chime in a little bit, at least in the recruiting aspect, I owe a lot to H&M. They're very progressive, and they thought outside the box in a huge, huge, huge way. Some of the things that we did to find people and to discover people, it just kind of sounds silly, but it was really progressive, and it still is to this day. It was like 20 years ago. And if I think of those rooms when we did these like assessments, and I don't want to go on a tangent about what we did, but it was like this literally like an assessment where you bring people in the room and you make them do tasks, and you don't even talk. You just watch them, and you give them these things, and you study them. And then, I could go on forever about what we did, but super progressive. And it worked. Like, we found awesome people, and sometimes people walk in the room and you didn't think they're going to be a good fit, and they end up being a rock star. And the person that you thought ends up leaving the assessment because they're upset, or just thought it was weird in this book, or got stressed out, or whatever the case may be. It was just super, super creative. And I loved a lot of what I learned while I recruited with them.
Well, actually, can you expound upon that? Because that is really interesting.
Which one? Which part? The assessment? The assessment?
Yeah, because
it is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't even know I was going to get into this. Okay. So I'll tell you, I did the assessment when I was hired, and I thought I bombed it. And I'll tell you what it was. and then you'll kind of hear when I was trained as a recruiter. So when I first went, I did my first interview, and they're like, great, come in for this, personality assessment. I'm like, okay, what's this? So I showed up in this room, and there's this big, huge room, just like in a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like half a conference room, and there were tables everywhere. I'd say like 7 tables, round tables, and each table had like 7 chairs, and the 7 chairs had a different colored jersey. And you walked in, and there was one person in one corner, one person in another corner from the company, H&M, and they didn't talk to you. They were quiet, and they were just sitting there, and they had clipboards. And then there was like a moderator, and she's like, okay, come on in. When you pick any chair you want, put the jersey on and have a seat. I'm like, okay, this is bizarre. So I walked in, put a jersey on, and sit down. Then people start trickling in. And then she gets up and she starts talking. She's like, okay, everybody, thank you for joining us. As you can tell, everybody's wearing a different colored jersey. You will be referred to by the color on your jersey. You don't have a name. You're not a person. You're just the color of your jersey. And everybody, those 2 people you see in the room, please do not speak to them. They are cameras, and they're going to be taking notes throughout the process, and you do not speak to them. You can speak to the people at your table, but that is it. Okay. So then they started just doing like these tasks that we had to do. And so the first one was like, okay, everybody stand up. In the middle of your table, you see a box, and it's full of Legos. I want you to dump the Legos on the table, and I want all of you guys to build a house. So I'm like, okay. So we started building a house, and she's like, okay. And every time I blow a whistle, I want you to stop and take a new direction. Okay. So we're building the house, and she's like, okay, blows a whistle. All right. I want you to have 1 window, only 1 window. If you have 2 windows, fix it. If you don't have a window, add a window, put a window. A minute goes by. She's like, okay, now I want a door. Put a door on there. So we're putting a door on there. Okay. As you guys can see on your chairs right now, there's a box full of wooden blocks. While you're building that house with your team, I want you to build the tallest tower with the blocks that are on your chair. We're like, okay, so you're doing that, listening to the directions on that, building this tall tower. She's like, okay, while you guys are doing those 2 tasks, here is a ball. It's a tennis ball. I want you to pass it around the table in a circle while you're building the tallest tower and while you're building the house. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I don't want any more windows. Take the windows out. So we're like doing that. Now I want you to bounce the ball between. So as you can tell, it's like progressively getting crazier and crazier. And I'm thinking, this is the most maddening thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm starting to freak out. I'm starting to tell people, hey, we need a window in this house. Hey, guys, no, bounce the ball. She said, bounce the ball. So we're all telling each other what to do. Some people are being quiet. Some people are bossing. We started doing all these different tasks. Long story short, there's a bunch of these drills. And I thought I completely flubbed. I thought I was toast, because I remember there was a few times where I was like barking orders or taking charge. And, one person leaves the room mad, and then come to find out, 4 years later, I'm the moderator now. And I know what we're looking at. We're looking at teamwork, stress resistance, looking at taking leadership. They didn't want to know your name. They didn't want, because at the end, when I was a moderator, I would look at that notepad remember the 2 people in the corners that were cameras? Mm-hmm. They're writing table 1, red, screamed a cuss word. Table 2, yellow, was taking charge. Orange was stormed out of the room, whatever, they were telling you. And then from there you say, okay, who do you want to hire? Okay, I want yellow, I want orange, I want this, and it's nothing to do with the name of the person. It's nothing to do with what they look like. It's just the color of their jersey and how they responded and how they worked.
Fantastic. Oh my gosh. When you started saying she was adding in more and more tasks, my brain went to the floor of H&M to imagine the hectic things, and that you're in the middle of doing something and then you're called to do something else. That's real life, right? I think that's brilliant for everyone who's listening. If you're not doing this in your process of hiring and interviewing, do it. And
I would love it. I try to implement that, but I think when I went to Panera, they're like, that's too crazy. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is great. but
It's brilliant.
I
And then,
loved it.
right, and you're not looking at the person's name. There's no bias going on. And you really see the true person's personality, how they respond to stress, how they respond, working with teammates. Are they supportive? Are they critical? Or, are they kind? Are they nasty? Like, you really see the true person. And ultimately, is this the person you're going to want working alongside of you? I think that is just fantastic. And I think one of the things which we'll get to now too,
It's
about
like
when you're interviewing.
it's the true. Everybody talks about soft skills, Joe, right? Everybody.
Yeah, I
I
call
want
them
soft skills.
Yeah, but I call them essential skills because to me,
There you
there's
go.
nothing soft about it. I
Okay.
can't stand when people like
Okay.
you with the headhunter and recruiter. I can't stand when people refer to them as soft skills. It is
Essential
not
skills.
soft.
Everybody
Essential
wants those
skills.
essential skills.
Yes.
That's how you see it. You could get it out of a face-to-face interview, and I do that, and my technique of interviewing, I that's what I'm trying to do. But that right there, I mean, that's like the perfect collage and showcase of it. I mean, you can't get more real than that.
Exactly. So let's segue into that. So how do we take that larger exercise into your position and your position in terms of being a headhunter and finding the right person for that job? But for all of us who are listening or watching, whether it's on Clubhouse or in the live stream, and just to reset anyone who's joined us just on Clubhouse, we're having an interview and a conversation with Jeremy Nichols, who is Florida's hospitality recruiter and headhunter. And so let's talk about how do we take these skills without doing a full-blown thing, and how do we figure out how to find out who the true person is, how we differentiate. And Jeremy, you and I talked a little bit on the pre-call about a way that you interview people. You do this as a living, and how you get them to be at ease and then actually open up where you will be able to witness what's really their true personality, and not coming in as someone who's all buttoned up.
Yeah.
And they know the right answers. They know the way to respond. They know how to sit if they've been trained properly. How do you get to that true person so you know who you're hiring?
Well, I mean, I think the most important part is to be humble and to understand that the interview is going both ways. So the candidate is not the submissive person. I'm not dominant and they're not submissive. Like, I think there's this mindset with a lot of recruiters, or especially in the corporate side, and I can say that because I spent most of my career over there. You think I'm the recruiter, I'm in charge, it's my desk, you're my candidate, you're my candidate from my company. It's like, you got to kind of just drop yourself off that high horse and just have a conversation and make them feel at ease that this is just a conversation. You're interviewing us, my company, and as a headhunter, you're interviewing with me just as much as I'm, interviewing with you. And you're going to feel, a candidate, if they're going to work with me, I say this all the time, like, I'm not the end all be all. Like, there are plenty of other recruiters and headhunters out there. Vet your recruiters, vet your headhunters. Everybody that's listening to this call, if you're going to work with a recruiter or a firm, vet them. Make sure you look them up and see, their recommendations, see if they gel with you, and if there's someone that you can trust. Trust is the big deal. Communication is huge. So following up with them. I know from my desk, transparency is huge. I have to break bad news to people more than I break good news to people. More than because I have a lot of candidates and people are looking for, jobs, and I do have a lot of searches, but there's thousands of people looking for work, right? So I feel it's my job to, let them know if I don't have anything, if they don't meet the requirements that my client is looking for. Just have those heart to hearts. And candidates are grown people. They're not going to get their feelings hurt. So recruiters out there, just talk to them, tell them, let them know they're not, ghosting should be squashed. I say that all the time.
That's my next question. I want to dive into that.
But the interviewing part is just relating to them. And I like to just start off the conversation, just talking to them. If I feel they're still a little nervous, I'll talk about myself a little bit and try to make them feel at ease and find something that we can relate to and talk. Then we can start talking about the job and the the skills and what you can bring and your accolades, and then we'll wrap it up with, hey, I say this to every candidate. This relationship goes both ways. If you want to reach out to me during the process, for me, I'll tell you something by Friday. That's 5 days. I'll know something and I'll let you know regardless. But if you have a question tonight, tomorrow, this relationship goes both ways. You can call me. Like, here's my number, text me, call me, email me. Nobody takes advantage of it. I say this to everybody. I've not had one person take advantage of it. And I feel it makes candidates feel at ease. Like, oh, wow, like I don't have to sit around waiting for this recruiter to get back to me. I can just reach out to this guy and he'll answer me. And, that is establishing that dynamic is important. And the one thing, I know I'm kind of rambling, but the differentiator between corporate and headhunter, and the one thing that makes it a little easier for me, is when I'm calling candidates, I'm basically having networking calls. A lot of the times I'm not calling about one particular search. I'm calling for you to be in my network, and I might have multiple searches. So I can have a very clean and transparent conversation with you with what type of position you want. That way, I'm getting a good feel for, maybe I have a select service GM search I need to fill, but you told me on the call you want to be in boutique. I'm able to say, well, I had a search, but it's for this. You told me that you're looking for something in boutique. That's okay. I work with a lot of independents. I work with a lot of boutiques. Something will come up, and that's great that we talked, because I will reach out to you soon. I will. Something will happen. So just building your network, building your relationships. And I've had people that I talked to years ago that I placed, or that I talked to someone 2 weeks ago and I can place. It's all timing.
Yeah. So you just mentioned relationships. So I just want to use that. You just triggered a thought. Anyone on Clubhouse listening with us today, I have a club that's called EX and then the plus sign CX Relationship Biz. Please be sure to join that club and feel free to host topics, your own rooms around that. But that's the club we're building, because it is about the relationship business. And you do a great job of creating that relationship. So I just want to highlight a couple of things that I heard you say so that people really pick up on those key takeaways. And one of them is, how do we make them at ease, right? Like, how do we see the true personality? This stemmed from the previous H&M whole, a long involved interperson group environment, seeing you in teamwork. But one-to-one is very important. So try using what I heard you say, Jeremy, is that you talk a little bit, set them at ease in the beginning, ask about them. Everyone loves to talk about themselves. Use their name, right? It's the sweetest word in any given language is that person's name. Use their name, look at them in the eye, ask about them. Once they start talking, and I'm adding a little on to what you've said. So this is my philosophy, but that I've learned through the years. But once you start talking to them and asking about them, they're free flowing because they're comfortable talking about themselves. So now you've got them at ease. Then you can ask a little bit about the job or what it is, and then give your own story. You said you talk a little bit about yourself. So then you're creating that rapport, and you're also kind of sprinkling in the job requirements and what you're looking for in between personal stories. So you're able to really, that's to me, I think, a limited one-to-one version of the bigger example of what you did in H&M to see who they are as a person. And you ask, I think, very pointed questions, never closed-ended questions where they can answer a yes or no. A closed-ended question would be like, would you like XYZ? And the answer is going to be yes or no. You don't want to ever do that. You want to keep them open-ended questions that creates that conversation. So, what you just said, creating that ease, creating that rapport, letting them know that they can reach you at any time helps establish that kind of on the level, same level that you said is something that's really important to you, that they know you're just as important. It's not the company that's doing all the choosing. You have the right to choose. You are in the position to say yes or no, whether you get that offer or not as well, which I think is super, super important and really becoming more and more relevant today. So speaking on that, do you see today that our market is either an employer or an employee market? So I'm also a real estate agent and licensed, just let my New York license go, but I was licensed in New York and now also in Texas. and it is definitely a seller's market. So that would be, the parallel would be an employer's market. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, because I know the way I see it, but I'm wondering, in your position as a headhunter, do you feel like it's an employer's market that they can choose whoever they want, or is it an employee market where they get more of the power?
It's a hybrid. So, and again, anybody that's listening, I am in Florida, so we are a few steps ahead as far as like what's going to happen throughout the country, right? And when I say that, I mean as far as our demand in the market. I don't mean anything else. So take what I'm saying as far as business, because we've been open longer, and hotels or occupancies are going crazy. Miami finally caught up. They were hurt so bad. Now they're selling out weekends. They're nuts down there. The Orlando's is slowly getting back, but the parks are a huge deal. So once the parks are 100% capacity, Orlando is going to boom again. But the whole state is surrounded by water, so we're very leisure, and our demand is nuts right now. And there's a huge crisis in need of housekeepers, servers, bartenders, cooks, sous chefs, restaurant managers. Forget about it. All you got to do, don't take my word for it. Go to Indeed, type in the word restaurant, and then search in Florida, and you will be blown away just by the laundry list, and everybody's batting and trying to get the same person. So yes, it's a candidate market, but there are positions within our industry that are not back yet, that are, sadly not going to come back. It's going to take a little longer. Like, I don't see that many dorm positions out there, directors of revenue. I don't see those. I don't see a lot of DOS. Like they're starting to pop up. I don't see, events, like directors of events and banquet and catering. I mean, there are some, but so those ones are very dependent on convention and business travel. So of course those are going to come back later. But the good news is it starts somewhere. So the race has started. We have a ton of searches in Florida. Most of them are food and beverage and management, but it's going to trickle up. It's going to go into directors. It's going to go into even C-suite, and once new ownership groups come in and take over some properties that need help, and once there's new restaurants opening up and new hotels are opening now. So it's just the race just started. We're tying our laces. We haven't even started the sprint yet. It's already happening.
Yeah. Well, that's very encouraging for sure. And I think, the more rollouts of the vaccine, and once people are more and more companies are opening larger percentages and more states are opening, that we're going to see this happening. Florida, of course, has a lot of these tourist locations and highlight areas. So I think you definitely are leading the way. So it's 12:30, but before we finish up on the live stream and then go straight to Clubhouse only, I do want to talk about something. And Jeremy, we're going to have to do a session 2, because there's still so much that we didn't
I feel
about.
Like I just started. I'm like, wait a minute, it's already been a half an hour. Ugh,
I know. Wow. It's crazy.
Sorry.
So
I'm long-winded.
No. Well, we'll do another round for sure. But one thing I would like to get into this one in particular, because I know even with my clients, which are restaurant clients, and I know it's across the board, the problem of ghosting. Let's just touch on it very quickly, and we can talk about it more in the Clubhouse, but I would like to get it out here for everyone watching the live stream as well. It is just beyond me, my sense of integrity and work ethic, that I cannot even imagine, but it is a very serious, huge problem that people are offered jobs. And Adele, we're going to have you speak to this too, because I remember you saying that you gave someone a 6-figure offer and they just didn't even get back to you. And so it's amazing to me that you get, whether it's an hourly wage worker or executive leadership, to actually not show up for an interview or get a job offer or even accept a job offer and then just blow it off. Like, that blows my mind.
Yeah, it's like, we're adults here. Like, you can just tell me. You're not going to break my heart, right? Like,
completely. So just quickly, I would like your input on this from your headhunter hat. do you do any, I was going to say, what do you do? But maybe the question, I guess, is really, do you have any prep? Do you talk about that? What do you do with your candidates to try to eliminate that?
Oh my God. Yeah. That's a great question. Yeah. So I see it on both ends. Let's not sugarcoat it. Candidates are doing it like crazy to us on the hiring side, right? And it's also happening to them, and they're very, very ticked off. I spent a whole year for COVID just listening to them vent to me and just taking the punches. I know I don't do it. I mean, all you have to do is go on my LinkedIn feed, because I talk about it so much. If I was doing it, you would see some trolls on my feed. And I'm very adamant. I tell my recruiters, if I even catch a wind, if someone tells me, hey, your recruiter didn't get back to you, I'm on it. Like it's unacceptable. There's no excuses on either side. I made like 3 videos on YouTube about it, and I ramble on but anyway, prep for it. You have to, as a recruiter, as a hiring manager, when you engage in the conversation with the candidate, first it has to be just the way you're interviewing, like how I told you before, just trying to establish that relationship where there's a little bit of trust here. And I talk about it. And I'm not saying it's perfect, because I am still ghosted. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. And it happens to my recruiters, especially on the restaurant side, where it's just kind of par for the course. But we do bring it up. We do say, look at, I know you're interviewing at other places. I'm hoping to help you throughout your job search. And even if this particular search is not a fit for you, I will have something down the road. So it's no problem at all. If you change your mind, if you get a counteroffer, if anything like that happens, just tell me. You're not going to break my heart. And I joke like that. I say that you're not going to break my heart. Shoot me a text. I don't care. Whatever you got to do, just let me know. Just because I don't want to have egg on my face in front of my client. And I'm telling you this now. If you do ghost me, I will put a red flag on your name in my ATS. So in the future, if you wanted me to work with you, not going to happen. Not going to happen.
But I think it goes even beyond not working with you. I mean, it sets a really bad name for themselves in the market that they're trying to differentiate themselves.
Yeah.
Right? So
my video I did last week I think it's called like the worst thing candidates can do or something like that. It's about them ghosting us. So I did a whole one about us ghosting them. And now I did one about, hey guys, don't do it, because employers talk. And you might think that just because you're interviewing with ABC Hotel, they know all the other players on the beach, and you don't know who's talking to who. Same with clubs, same with restaurants. And if you are doing it, it might hurt you. Like and anyway, it's just bad form, period. Just don't do it.
Yeah. And especially both sides. We're on social media, right? Like it's LinkedIn, you go to LinkedIn, which is built for that, or, some of these other sites that are specifically for hiring and looking for referrals for business and hiring positions. It just gets out there. And And at the end of the day, I say to my kids, when along the way, when they're doing something or they've said something, or whether they decided they want to follow through on something they've said they would do, and maybe now they don't want to go, it's like, it's your name. It's your character. It's your reputation. You decide, but just know that it's going to ultimately affect you and how you're viewed for the next time that you want to do something. And I believe if we say we're going to do it, then you do it. That's a part of the character. Yeah.
I've had candidates say, "Oh, okay, we'll
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say I've had candidates that will obviously be upset because they've been ghosted so much and they're so mad. And sometimes it's like this revenge, like a little bit on their end. Like I hear this constantly, and I'm like, wow. Those companies that are doing it to you, don't worry, it will come back. It just as much as it's hurting your name. If you do it, it's hurting their name too. So don't worry about that. Just brush your shoulders off, keep trucking. If they're ghosting you, and I'll tell them, I'll give them tips on what to do if they are ghosted, because maybe it's just they didn't see the email, and it could be something simple. But I can go on forever on it. Sorry, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. Well, we'll continue that conversation on Clubhouse, but it is also crazy. And I know it's illogical, but if you're, something happens to you, so say they feel like they've been ghosted and then they go do it to another company. Maybe it's not the same company, but that's their way of revenge, but it's not, because it's affecting their reputation with someone else, right? Like to think about, like when you're dating, and you get really mad. have a really bad experience, well, then the next person you meet, you judge them or behave according to how you were treated in another one, which has nothing to do with them. So you're already stepping into a very spoiled, dirty environment, right, to start with. So
I'll show you. No, you didn't.
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, just put up a mirror because you're the only one that's going to be impacted by that. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Great conversation. We are going to continue on Clubhouse. If you're watching us live on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, join us on Clubhouse. Right now, the room is open and it is under the title of Hospitality Hiring and Recruiting Authentically. I misspelled it. Authentically. Authentically is the word I wanted. And under hospitality and more, but we will also be doing rooms under EX plus CX relationship biz. So please make sure you join that club too. Jeremy, I'm going to say goodbye to you quickly. Hang on. We'll see you in Clubhouse, and a great conversation. We're going to continue in just a minute. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So thanks again today for a great episode. We're going to have Jeremy back because there's so much more to talk about. And this is such an important topic right now with everything going on. Next week, really excited to have another amazing hospitality guest, Adele Gutman, who will be joining us, comes from just decades of experience in the hospitality world, lots of great wisdom to share with us. So please join us again Thursday, same time. We'll do the same thing with Clubhouse. We'll start at 11:45. We'll do our live stream here at 12 o'clock and continue in Clubhouse. So thanks again for joining us, and see you either in Clubhouse or later in the week. Cheers.